Hello, hello. We are live, and we are so excited to be bringing you 5 barriers to downsizing for a move abroad. And before we get started, I want to make sure that those of you who are joining live can hear us. So if you're joining live and you can hear us, let us know where you're joining from and where you're considering making a move abroad to. So go ahead and type that in. While you do that, I am going to take this opportunity to introduce myself. I am Patricia Brooks. I live in the south of France and have since 2018. I help people who are ready to start the next chapters of their lives living and thriving in a foreign country find that wherewithal, that gumption to actually take the leap. And on this YouTube channel, I talk about my experiences here in France and how to find that confidence and courage to go beyond the bounds of what you thought was possible. And today on this live stream, I have an amazing guest.
I don't
my
know how
dear
amazing that is, Patricia.
my dear friend, Dr. Christopher Wells, and he has made a move abroad as well. So would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, absolutely. Hi, I'm Christopher Wells, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Patricia and I have worked on other projects together, and we really enjoy it. And that's why we're here today, because we feel like when we collaborate, great things happen. I
Mhm,
am living in Valencia, Spain. And the funniest
mhm.
part about that is I liked it so much, I've done it twice. I moved here in 2013 to 15, and then I had to move back to the US for job reasons. And then the entire time I was there, I'm like, how can I get back to Spain? And in 2021, made it happen. So
Mhm.
I have done the expat process and the downsizing not once, but twice, and I feel pretty good about that. And I see some people have joined.
Yes. Go ahead. You
Jackson,
want to shout them out?
yeah, absolutely. Murda from Jacksonville, Florida. I used to live in Melbourne, Florida. I like Jacksonville quite a bit. And you're making a move to France.
Yeah. Hi, Myrna. We spoke earlier this week, last week. Yeah. Welcome.
And then I believe we know this particular
Yes, we
participant,
do.
Miss Bismarck, North Dakota to Poland.
Hi, Natina. Thank you so much for joining.
It's great to see you here. And I have thought several times about your experience that you shared with us, just in terms of meeting new people and new cultures, and how joyful that was. That was so encouraging to me as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
um, Entre Culturas, Lima, Ohio.
Mhm.
So yeah, oh wow, we've got a lot of folks here.
Yes.
Hey
Mhm.
Lisa, and oh, you're already starting. Timely discussion as I just took my first load of clothing and shoes to Goodwill. You're in New Mexico. Well, people in New Mexico are going to need those things in Goodwill. So thank you for sharing that, and hopefully we can give you some good tips while we're here today.
Yes.
Edelweiss says hi from North California.
Mhm.
I hope you haven't been too horribly impacted by the fires there. I have some friends who live in California and have had some challenges. So
Mhm.
I hope that you're doing okay.
Mhm.
For sure.
And Carolina Stallone,
Oh yeah.
Entrepreneuras, she's already signed up for I believe she's already signed up for the workshop in March. So
I
excited
know.
about that. Well, welcome everybody. And if you're watching the replay in the future, welcome to you. We've got a lot to cover today, so we are going to jump in. And the topic today are the 5 barriers to downsizing and how to overcome them. We're going to give you a little teaser because we've got a lot to offer for our workshop. And I'm going to let Christopher share the first point.
Well, our first point is emotional attachments to possessions.
Mhm.
I don't know about you, but I tend to collect things because I feel emotional about them in the moment. And there are some things that I will not part with because they are emotionally very powerful to me. And I think we all have things like that in our lives. However, what what I want to point out is that there is a psychology behind it. When you have an item that you care a great deal about, it's because it represents something. It represents an identity, it represents a place that you've been, it represents some sort of memory. And letting go of that can definitely feel very difficult, can feel like you are discarding part of who you are. And the questions that have come up several times for me and for friends of mine who've also moved abroad is this: is is it the actual physical object, or will a representation of that object do the trick? If you have a photo of that person, if you have a photo of that thing, if you have a photo of these possessions that you have, will that satisfy your emotional need to feel connected to those parts of yourself that were part of that particular um, physical object or thing? And another strategy that may work for you as well is, if it's a physical object and you don't want to part with it, can you give it to someone who will care for it in a way that you feel comforted by the fact that they're enjoying that thing? Um, and I'll give you just a quick example. And I've mentioned this to Patricia before. I brought all of my elementary and high school yearbooks with me to Spain. I honestly have no idea why, but I cannot part with them. It is one of those things where emotionally I cannot just let them go. And as a result, I have started looking online for these yearbooks to see if they're visible online. And sure enough, some of them are. And so I may be able to start discarding some of those because it's not necessarily the yearbook. It is that the memory of those things that went into that document. Now, I I've moved to another country twice. And when I moved to another country, the first time I sold my house, I sold my car, I had an I'm not dead yet estate sale. I sold everything. I came back to an empty house, and it was very spooky and also very freeing. But at the same time, I knew that I had the things with me that I really cared about. And it was a small amount of stuff, and I was perfectly okay. And for me, moving from the physical aspect of it to having it some other way, I had a full scholarly library that I took all my books to a print shop and had them cut off the spines, and I got a scanner and scanned all of my academic books because I couldn't take them with me, but it worked for that. The same thing with photos, and I see some other folks have suggested, put them on a flash drive or something else so that you have access to those things, some sort of cloud storage,
Mhm.
and that means that they're still with you. You still have access to them. And then maybe in the future, you might want to get like some digital frames and load up pictures onto them so that you can see those things again and have that feeling of connection to those things again, because you are emotionally attached to those possessions, and
Mhm.
you don't want that emotional attachment to just evaporate all at once.
Yeah, and it's hard to let go, right?
Terribly hard to let go. You really have to have some fortitude to do it. And that's one of the reasons why we feel like this topic is so important, because we've heard from other people who've moved overseas that this is a common challenge, that their things are acting as anchors. And we want to turn those anchors into balloons and allow you to live your own personal adventure.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good point, about how that emotional attachment is so strong, can be so strong, and can be can be debilitating. Another barrier that I think is really closely associated with that attachment is the sheer volume of things that we have accumulated in our lives. We in the United
Are you in my house somewhere, Patricia? Because
States.
I
In the United States, it is a consumerist society, and we can just collect and collect and collect stuff. And so we can have a house, and if we've lived any place for any amount of time, things just seem to grow. And that sheer amount of stuff can create overwhelm when we have to get rid of it, because it's much like, I like to think about this. I'm a writer, so I like to think about this when I start a new book or a new story, and I am, in front of the computer and it's the white page and just a cursor flashing there. That is overwhelming because there's nothing there and I don't know where to start. And it's the same, it's kind of like the inverse when you've got a house full and an attic full and a garage full and a basement full of stuff that is staring at you that you have to get rid of in order to make your move abroad. And the reason that this can cause so much overwhelm and paralysis is you just don't know where to start, right? It's like, I'm never going to get this done. And it can be really uh, make you feel uh, like you don't have the power to move through it. So, um, and I think psychologically, there's also that part of us that says, these things make me who I am. And so I have all of these things, and there can be comfort in having things. There's a story where I still have a security blanket, right? It was my mom's blanket, and it was a blanket I gave her the Christmas before she died. And so I now have that on my bed here, and it makes me feel good. And so our things, and that familiarity can make us feel really comfortable. So what can you do to move past this this feeling of being overwhelmed and not knowing where to start? I think that one of the things that you can do is, not everything is going to be so emotionally charged. And I think the thing you need to do is just to get started. When I'm writing something and I've got that blank page, I just start writing. Like, I recognize that first paragraph or whatever is not going to probably make it. It's just getting the juices flowing. And so you can do something similar when you have this house full of stuff, and you can go to the pile of things that don't have that emotional charge or attachment, and then you can move through that a little bit more easily, get things going, and then you can move on to the things that are more emotionally charged. um, so yeah, that's my tip on dealing with the overwhelm, dealing with the, oh my gosh, I've got so much stuff. I'm never going to get through this. Start with the things that are easier to get rid of. All right. So that's number two, barrier number two.
well, and we also ran into that when we were in Valencia as well. That that was one of the things that one of the people there was saying. Like, I have this garage full, and it's really a lot for me to consider. And through your discussions with her, um, she realized that she has help. Her daughter has said multiple times, "Let me help you." And that's where our next challenge comes in. One of the barriers that many people feel like they have and have to overcome is the lack of accountability and support. They feel like they are in this alone, that they've got to figure out how to declutter, how to downsize all on their own. But in fact, you don't have to do this alone. And that's one of the reasons why we always advocate, find a friend who's going to support you in this and have them become your accountability partner. So I'll tell you, when I was first contemplating moving abroad, I had a friend come over And she didn't have to do anything. All she had to do was just sit there and keep me company. Because when she was sitting there keeping me company, I could then focus on just getting rid of stuff. I could say, "What do you think of this?" And she would say, "Do you really need that?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." And it was so much easier just because there was somebody there helping me do it. Just like the person at our Valencia workshop said, her daughter, and they she's already reported back that she's made some really good inroads on that, that her daughter was thrilled to be part of this process to help her mom reach her goal and kind of pursue her own dream. And so when you're thinking about whether or not you have support or accountability, talk to your friends about this. And don't, by the way, don't be afraid to hire help either. There are now decluttering experts in every big city. And I also run a meetup group um, that we spoke about this topic a couple of months ago, and while we were on there, somebody said, "What city do you live in?" To one of the people who was talking about her stuff, and they said, "Oh, I live in Atlanta or somewhere like that." And the other person said, "I'm going to be in Atlanta for 2 weeks coming up next month. Let's schedule some time, and I will come to your house, and we will sit there and have coffee, and then declutter together," because they had built a relationship right there in that context, and it was so supportive. So you may have more support than you think. Another person said, "If you want to take your laptop into the garage and set it up, I will be there with you while you go through your things as a virtual support person, and help you tackle those things that are in your home that might feel really overwhelming if you're doing it alone."
Yeah, yeah, those are really good ideas, and I think that you're speaking about the women who came to our workshop, in our in-person workshop in Valencia, and that accountability was huge for her because there was the overwhelm. Oh my gosh, I've got all this stuff. How am I going to get through it? I'm attached to some of those things, and during our workshop, she was on the hot seat. She raised her hand to agree to be coached in front of everybody, and we got to a point where that having support was the thing she wanted to do, and so I I challenged her, at lunch, to reach out to her daughter and to get a commitment from her daughter to help her, and she did, and that kind of just released the stress. And then later she got the help, and then she got additional help by joining my program for the accountability, the weekly accountability. And just today, she said, "Okay, for next week, I'm going to get rid of one bag of shoes and clothes, one bag of shoes and purses, and two bags of clothes." And so, it's slow and
Wow,
steady,
so she's
and
been
having
very
that
precise.
accountability matters so much.
That's fantastic. So she's being super precise about what she wants to accomplish.
I'm making her be super precise, because if I've got to hold her accountable, I need to know what I need to ask her.
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So we've got some comments here. Do you want to go through some of the comments, or you want to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go from the most recent down. Julie said she just moved to France. Someone initially said to me, if it plugs into an outlet other than a computer or phone, start there. And I think that that's a good place to start, because we all have electronics in our lives. I mean, we're watching this on some device, right? We all
Mhm,
have some electronics in our lives, and those are things that you can minimize if you're not going to be able to use them in another country.
mhm,
Let's see. So if I were to use writing as a tool and made three lists: keep, donate, or donating, gift, and sell, how can you decide what is worth keeping? That is the million-dollar question, and that actually is one of the biggest topics that we're going to be covering in our workshop in March. But the priority of what you want to keep, what you want to donate or gift, and what you want to sell really comes down to, if you move to another country, would you be able to replace it if you needed it? And in many people's perspective, because they're moving to a first world country, they might have access to all the things that they might sell or donate in the U.S. because then it's less baggage for them to take to another country. But we're going to get into that in quite a bit
Yeah,
of detail
yeah, and I'm gonna
in our
the next
workshop.
topic that I'm gonna touch on that a little bit as well.
Yeah. Um, let's see. I decluttered. Oh, I decluttered, sold, donated things for putting the house on the market, but I have a storage unit. Uh-oh. It's always the storage unit or the
Yes.
garage. Um, and it's a never-ending process. And let me just talk about that for a minute. You can't do it all at once. Um, you have to start somewhere, but it's not making those decisions about what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep. Those take time, and you sometimes have to get comfortable with them. So let's say you have a junk drawer in your house, and mentally you may raise your hand if you too have a junk drawer. But that junk drawer, there are things in there because you didn't want to get rid of them at the time, but now you may be able to get rid of them. And if you go back in a month and you think, well, I'm moving in a few months, so that junk drawer, all of it can go. And that's what I found in my experience, that it was an iterative process, and I learned more about myself, and then I was able to let go of more.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Great. Great question, Natina, or great comment, Natina. And Dion. Hi, Dion. Welcome. So glad you're here. Dress
So
shopping.
when I realized that I was going to be moving to Spain, and Patricia, I want to hear your perspective on this too. I mentally said, if I buy this, am I taking it with me to Spain?
Mhm,
And that was it. That was the acid test. If
mhm,
if if I was moving in 6 months, well, if I buy that thing, it's either going with me or I have to get rid of it.
mhm,
And I didn't like the economics of that.
mhm, mhm. And then one last comment here. Lolly G says, I can recommend a book by Dana K. White called Decluttering at the Speed of Life. She's on YouTube too. Really liked her perspective. Thank you for sharing that, Lolly G.
Yeah, I look forward to looking that book up. I actually copied it and threw it into a list that I have. Let me just say one more.
Mhm,
Can you use a bicycle as an example? Sure. And I actually have this example. So before I moved to Spain,
mhm,
I bought a bicycle and I actually had
mhm,
it shipped here with me. Um, and it it was very nice to have one, and I used it quite a bit. But then when I moved back to the States, I couldn't take it with me. So I had to find a home for it here in Spain. But once I got here, I realized that me bringing my bike was a bit of a fool's errand because they sell bikes here and I could buy one, and it could be whatever kind of bike I wanted, just like when I was in the US. So it there are so many other ways to get the things that you need around the world, and even if you're attached to that particular bike because it's a special bike for you, it was a sign of freedom at some point, you can still enjoy that same sensation when you move to another country and maybe celebrate getting a new bike in your
mhm.
new country and being like, oh no, this is my French bike, and oh wait, this is my Spanish bike. You can actually do that and change your perspective around that particular thing. I hope
Yeah,
that helps.
yeah. And I think that leads nicely into barrier number 4, and that is uncertainty about future needs. Um, when we are moving to a new country, we aren't really sure what what things we will need, what things we will be able to get to country, and what things we will struggle with. And I think going back to the idea feels in and out here. So, can you hear me, Christopher? You
Yes. Oh, Patricia,
rid of
we may.
them can cause
Yeah.
you to feel like, and that scarcity never feels good. And thinking, well, maybe I won't be able to, could be what's going on here? Could be a block for you because I can't get rid of this because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this thing. And so, um, I had a one-on-one coaching client, and she has curly hair. And so she's got the right, set of products, had the right set of products in the US so that her hair looked great and she didn't have to worry about that. And she was feeling some anxiety over, oh, well, I really want to stock up on these products because I don't know what I'll be able to find in France. And so we, had a coaching session, and we talked about that and how to move through that process because it's true. We're not necessarily sure we're going to be able to find the things that work for us. And the recommendation was to do research. There are the Facebook groups where people have already made the move. They can tell you, hey, yeah, I struggled with this, but I found these products. If you're going on a scouting trip, that might be a great time for you to say, okay, I'm going to maybe leave some of my curly hair stuff at home, and I'm going to try just for my trip what these things are, and if they could be substitutes for what I love, in my home country. And in that way start to explore and kind of let go of that feeling of that uncertainty that, oh, I have to have this exact thing. um, and make adjustments if you're moving and you're not sure, maybe bring an extra one, and do look around as soon as you get there to find those things that are going to work for you. And so that uncertainty, it's true about, okay, what should I bring with me and what should I, not. But it's also true about the move itself. Well, what if I get there and this? What if I get there and that? I think the thing to keep in mind here is that if you're moving to a country that is a first world country, at least, they're shops. So for you're more than likely going to be able to find something that is going to work for you. It might be different. It might even be better, actually. So the uncertainty about the future is future needs is a big one as well. The scarcity, mindset and thinking, oh, I'll never be able to replace this is at play. But recognizing that you can do research to make sure that you can know which things to take, as well as which things you can kind of let go of and replace when you get to your new country. So that is the uncertainty of what your future needs will be.
I think that that's a great point, and I know for one, I played into the uncertainty when I moved here the first time because I
Mhm,
really didn't know what to expect when I moved to Spain. I
mhm,
didn't know what was available, and it it took me a while to realize that I had, even with the few things that I brought, I had way overpacked. And I could have brought other things, or I'm not sure. I honestly, I'm not sure. But I know that when I started thinking, okay, I'm in a country where Amazon is available. It's not that I'm a
mhm,
huge fan of Amazon, but if they have a product that is specific for what I need, they're also companies that will ship all around the world. So you can still get a lot of the products that you expect in the US. You can still get a lot of the products in other countries.
mhm.
And there are even sometimes American stores that
Right.
crop up that they're very interesting, but um, there there are American stores that sell American kind of products, and that may also be a source for you. with the
They
beauty.
sometimes they're much more expensive.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you may find that you can like virtual shop online, like look at the bigger stores in the place where you're going while you're online and see if they have an online catalog and see if you can find the products that you need or the services that you need in your other home, in your new
Mhm.
home.
Yeah, yeah. I, I think that this is a big challenge. When I made my move, I was set on not shipping anything. Then I got down to the wire and got some help, got the support of friends, which was great because it was kind of a nice send off. They helped me clean out my house when I was down to very little, but I still needed help. And like the week before, I started packing my one big suitcase because I hadn't yet. I had decided I hadn't yet figured out how to have a couple of suitcases in tow through the airport. And I was like, yeah, one suitcase is all I can manage. I'm going to ship a big box with my security blanket in there and some other things. And that cost me about $400 back in 2018. But I was like, yeah, these are the things that are coming with me. And then as I ran out of time, that storage came into play. But I remember one of the most stressful parts of the move abroad was the packing that suitcase. It was like a puzzle, right? And I would put these one day I'd put all of these things in, and there were some things I said, well, I'll have to get rid of those because those can't, or put them in the box. And then the next day I was like, no, no, I think I want this. And it was in, out, in, it was a packing puzzle. And it was, each day I do it and it's like, okay, I ran out of time and whatever was in the suitcase at that time was what went, but it was very stressful.
I cannot agree more. And and unfortunately, I've also been the cause of stress. So when I moved here the second time, I know what it takes to move overseas. I knew exactly where we were going. I knew what we needed. I knew what we didn't need. And so I immediately started getting the house ready. Once we had submitted our paperwork for our visas and all that stuff, I started taking artwork off the walls and all that sort of thing. And at one point, my husband turned to me and he was like, "Could could you not? I mean, we're going to be living here for a couple more months. Can you leave the pictures up on the wall?" So I'm like, "Oh, sorry," because I was so focused. Now that I had a goal and I had an objective, I was so focused on getting things ready. Another another little tidbit around that is I also when I moved here, I used a company that shipped basically a freight box, and that would be door to door, so it would arrive at my doorstep, and I could have those things here, and I paid for that service, but
Mhm.
it is really interesting to see folks who are able to travel with just a suitcase, and that puzzle mentality has to come into play. And in fact, when we were packing our box that was going to be shipped, we were in basically a flat, so we didn't have a place to get this picked up. We didn't have a garage or anything like that. So we had to construct the box in the mail center where a truck could come and pick it up. And my husband, who is a fantastic puzzler and gamer, actually made basically a dungeon map of all of the things and every layer and how it all fit together. And so then he took everything out and laid it out on the floor. And then as I was bringing stuff out to him, he would arrange it into the box. Um, and Murda, I have no idea, but we during the class we can talk about some of the solutions that I have for that I found for shipping overseas that you may
Mhm.
want to look into.
Yeah, yeah. So I think as we've touched on four of the five barriers that we're going to talk about today. I think this would be a good time to kind of talk about, what we're offering on March 22nd. People asked for an online workshop. We did a workshop in person. People wanted something online. We're now offering an online workshop all about plan, pack, and minimize. Christopher, do you want to share the details about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we realize that there are folks who need help doing the transformative work of feeling overwhelmed to feeling focused, to struggling to let go of sentimental items, to knowing that you have brought the things that are most important to you, for feeling alone and not having anybody to help you, to feeling supported. So all of those things are things that we really want to touch on. So Patricia and I have developed a course that we think can help anybody who wants to move abroad. And this particular focus is going to be on minimizing your stress, saving you some money,
Mhm,
giving you very practical tools that are going to kind of jumpstart your downsizing process.
mhm,
We're going to talk about minimalization. We're going to talk about making priorities of what you want to keep and what you want to sell and what you want to rehome.
mhm.
What else would you say we're going to cover, Patricia?
Well, I think one of the key takeaways from our in-person workshop that people thoroughly enjoyed was having a workbook that helped to organize the process. And so we're that's going to be a big part of the workshop, is that we're going to go through the different parts of moving abroad. Well, do I ship, or do I get rid of everything? um, how do I sort, and the questions that came up here, well, how do I decide which things stay and which things go? We're going to delve into more detail around that. We're going to share our experiences with the people that we've worked with, and how they have actually managed making a move abroad and getting rid of stuff. And we're going to talk about your vision and your why for making the move abroad, and how your things fit in or don't fit into your why, so that you can really be in alignment as you sort through the things of your life and get rid of them. And so it's just really going to be an intensive um, 2.5 hours where you're going to learn a lot. You're going to have that workbook that you will take away with the questions and the things that you've jotted down in it. And you'll make connections with other people who are going through the same thing. Maybe you can walk away with somebody who might be an accountability partner for you, where you didn't feel like you had one. Because I think a lot of times people who want to move abroad might have friends, but the friends might not understand why they would leave their country. And so having accountability and support from somebody who is like-minded is really helpful. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be really exciting. I can't wait to do this. Our in-person workshop was amazing. So I know that this online workshop is going to be equally so. And it's something that you will not want to miss. It's going to be March 22nd, right?
Hmm.
Do you remember the time?
The time is, let me see here. Um, you realize, everyone, that we are operating in Central European time. So we always have to do this conversion job in our heads. It's from 10:30 a.m. Eastern time to 1 p.m. Eastern time.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. All right, great.
And the three modules really are around planning, around packing, and around minimizing. And what
Mhm,
you're going to end up with is a huge number of tools that you can use to continue your growth and your adventure.
mhm. And how much is that?
The current price is right now we've got an early bird going on. So there is a code early bird 50 that you can use when you sign up. It's normally $247 for the course, but we're with that 50 bucks off, it's only going to be $197. And that's 2.5 hours of very intense, very practical work with us. And at the end of it, will be looping back in over time and checking in on you too. So it's not like the class and then it's over. This is actually part of building a community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's going to be well worth it. Well worth it. So if you're interested, let me put the um, how you can find out more, sign up. You can go to that website. That will link you to the information there. Are you typing it in the chat?
I cannot type in the chat, but
Oh, you can type in the
I
chat?
just sent it to you.
All right. Let me type in the chat then.
Sorry, y'all. Patricia's the boss, and I'm
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
and I'm just attached on the side, so I don't have quite the same rights to do things as she does.
So if you're interested, here is a link for that.
And while you're doing that, let's see. My biggest issue is I spent X amount of money on this, and now I'm giving it away. In reality, no one may want this or value your stuff as much. That is very true, and a lot of people I think struggle with that. It isn't easy to give away something that is sentimental. You can offer it in a lot of different ways, through like Facebook Marketplace or uh, I would say Craigslist. I don't even know if that's still around, but there are ways that you can rehome things in a very positive and successful way. And I know you spend a lot of money on it, but what does that money really mean? Is that an anchor that's holding you down? Or is that going to be a balloon that's going to set you free? I mean, my yearbooks have zero monetary value. They're very important to me, and that's why I brought them with me.
Mhm.
While on the other hand, some of the things that I had purchased that were quite expensive, I was able to find a home to somebody who would appreciate them, and it made me feel good.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that leads into a really good point. Our fifth barrier to getting rid of stuff before a move. You want to go ahead and kick that off?
Yeah, and really this fifth barrier is exactly what we're talking about. You couldn't have teed that up any better for us. And that is, what are the practical challenges of like selling, donating, discarding items, rehoming items, all of those things? What are the real challenges of that? And like I said, I had an I'm Not Dead Yet estate sale. And when I had that estate sale, I was able to work with the company that did the estate sale, and everything that they didn't sell, they took care of donating. And then I got the tax write off for the donations that I made. So it was like a win-win-win situation. And I didn't have to deal with a lot of things the way they did. And then when it was over, I felt like I had taken a deep breath and I could start my new life. So offloading your possessions before you do it may feel very frightening, but once you've done it, you feel like $1,000,000. And frankly, because I've done it twice, I know what those emotional roller coasters are. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm just like, put my hands up and scream while I'm going down the roller coaster, because I know at the end of it, it's going to be an adventure waiting for
Yeah, I think that the time and energy and effort involved in getting rid of stuff, our possessions, things that we spent a lot of money on, and what? I'm going to give it away. That can really create some churn. And I think the thing that you need to recognize is that you have a choice in the matter. You have a choice in what you keep and what you don't. And coming up with a strategy on what that looks like. For me, I gave away way more than I sold. I did have an estate sale as well. I did it too late in the process. If you're going to do that, make sure you give yourself enough time. But for me, the idea of, using Craigslist and having people come by the house and not showing up and all of that stuff and trying to bargain and barter and, negotiate all of that there's a cost there. And for me, at the end of the day, yes, I spent good money on this, and this item is really good. And when I chose to donate it, I just recognized it was going to a home for where somebody really needed it. And so that helped me feel better about giving things away. But coming up with a strategy, are you going to are you going to have an estate sale? Are you going to try to sell? How are you going to try to sell? Are you going to just give it away? Right? Are you, what does that look like? What does that strategy look like? And it could be, I've had people I work with say, okay, I'm going to give myself this 3 months to try to sell on Facebook Marketplace these things. And at the end of that 3 months, what doesn't sell, I am going to give away, because this is keeping me from my life in my new country, right? And I think that is a tip that I have, is that your stuff, you've got, you can keep your stuff or you can have these new experiences, right? And as you weigh that out, that's the thing that's going to help you say, okay, this is hard, but I'm running toward those experiences, and keeping all of this is going to keep me weighed down. It's going to cause me stress and struggle to try to move it to a place that might be too small for the furnishings that I had wherever I'm coming from. So definitely come up with a strategy, and work that strategy, and that will make your life so much easier around getting rid of stuff.
Well, and I've got a story as well I'd like to share, just to kind of give you a little bit of insight. When we sold our place in the States, we tried to do some of the selling
Mhm,
stuff and
mhm,
put it on, I think it was Craigslist at the time.
mhm,
And there was a couple that came and looked at like our dining table and chairs, and they're like, we want to buy this. And then the guy said, "Do you have anything else that you just want?" Because we had explained our story to them. "Do you have anything else that you would like to give away, that 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 we could take that? We have friends that are new to the country and are really, they have nothing, and so these things would be very useful for them." And they ended up like taking, certainly the dining room table and chairs, but also like a filing cabinet and another chair and things like that. And then he called us back and he said, "I have someone who just moved into the US, and he really truly has the clothes on his back, and is trying to find an apartment, and but he doesn't have any furniture, he doesn't have anything." Well, we could only help him with what we had left, but it was right at the end of our process. And we were thinking, oh, we're going to have to throw away all this stuff or something. We're going to have to make an enormous drop at Goodwill or whatever.
mhm,
But we were able to give, I mean, it was like a half box of laundry detergent
mhm,
pods and I just all kinds of crazy stuff. We were able to give all of that to this person, and sheets, towels that we weren't going to be taking with us. And as a result, he had an instant home ready to go. Maybe not to his taste, but it was a way for us to say, we've been really blessed by all these things. And now we can kind of gift that to someone else who needs it.
mhm. Yes, yes. I love that story, and that had to. It's heartwarming, right?
It,
It's
and I'm not saying it because, oh, we're such great people. What I'm saying
well,
is
but
it
you are.
it was what it did is it arrived at the right time. And I
Mhm,
don't know that this is going to happen for anybody else, but it arrived at the right time for us, and we saw that and we said yes. Just like we
mhm,
had said yes to moving overseas, just like we had said yes to doing all the other things that we had done that had led us to that point. And
mhm,
so we said, you know what? We can't use that vacuum cleaner in the country that we're going to.
Mhm.
Please take our vacuum cleaner, take these towels, take these sheets, take these, cleaning supplies, because otherwise we just throw them away.
Yeah. Mhm.
So
So great. What questions do you have for us? Any more questions? Because if not, we can wrap it up. No? Did we cover everybody? Did we get everybody's questions?
I think so.
All right.
But if
Well,
anybody else has questions, keep popping them in. We'll
yeah.
answer them.
And I have a question for those of you who have joined live. What has been your biggest takeaway from this live stream today? Let us know in the comments. Be curious to see that. Okay.
And Lawrence, thank you for sharing that. Your partner and you are starting to plan a move to France, which is awesome. By the if this is all new to you, just so you know, on cleverexpat.com, I also have an expat 101 course that I'm running in the end of February, that you might want to take a look at. But it, it is a process. Learning how to become an expat, downsizing your things, it is a process. It doesn't happen overnight, and it really is something that frees you in a way that will allow you to enjoy your new life abroad.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
Oh yeah,
Worth every kilometer traveled, Natina.
Latina.
Your biggest takeaway is that you can definitely buy things in the new country. Yes, I remember watching a Rick Steves training. It was a woman who was a tour guide for Rick Steves, and she um, had to pack very lightly, and she got good at it, and she was running this training course, and the thing that I remember from that was, oh, you know what, you don't need to bring everything. They have things in your new country, and sometimes the stuff you get there is better. So that's a great takeaway.
And getting it into that few boxes, yes, that is definitely a challenge. But I mean, when you talk about these things, when you talk about downsizing, the things that we covered today include the emotional attachment to possessions, that overwhelm and decision paralysis that you can feel, the lack
Mhm.
of accountability and support, the uncertainty about what you might need in the future, and certainly the idea of selling, donating, and discarding items. These are things that every expat has to deal with in one fashion or another.
Yeah.
So our goal is to make that as easy of an experience as possible with some guidance from the folks that we've worked with and from the two of us, because this is what our passion really is.
Yeah, and I would add easy and as cost effective because there are ways that you can do it, and it can cost you more, like getting storage.
Yeah, it certainly can. It certainly can,
No.
and emotionally can also cost you emotionally, because those things can the physical things can hold you back for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining live and those who are watching the replay. Um, March 22nd is a day that you want to be with us because it is going to be a very informative, it's going to be interactive, it's going to be engaging, and you're going to learn a lot about yourself and your attachment to your stuff and ways to move through that so that you can enjoy the journey of making a move abroad because yes, it's about getting to your dream country, but it's a process, as Christopher said. And if you are struggling and it's a slog to get there, that is a big part of your experience. And it's
Let's do it together.
yes,
It'll be
absolutely.
much easier that way.
Mhm, mhm. So if you're interested, I put a link to the workshop, to the page where you can get all the information, where you can sign up. There is the early bird. Um, what is the code? Early bird 50.
Early bird 50, yeah.
And we'd love for you to join us. All right. Anything else, Christopher?
No, this is, as always, it's just such a treat to do these. And I'm super excited about the class we're going to be presenting together. If you enjoyed this, multiply it by about 10. That's what the workshop is going to be. Only better. So that is one of the things that we found that we really enjoy working together, and I think it shows.
It does. I think it does too. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and hope to see you in March.